The mailbox was painted neon pink, not a soft blush or a subtle rose, but a screaming, in-your-face pink that could have doubled as a hazard sign. By 8 a.m., the neighborhood was already buzzing, and not the good kind of buzz like bees swarming a kicked hive. I'm Marcus, a 28-year-old mechanic who just moved back to my hometown of Willow Creek, a sleepy suburb where the biggest scandal used to be Mrs. Larson's runaway poodle. I'd come to help my grandma, Esther, who at 78 was still spry enough to bake cookies for the whole block, but stubborn enough to paint her mailbox whatever color she damn well pleased. That neon pink, her middle finger to the new homeowners association that had taken over our quiet street like a gang of clipboard-wielding bullies. Willow Creek wasn't always like this. Growing up, it was all lemonade stands and kids biking until the streetlights flickered on. But 6 months ago, a group calling themselves the Willow Creek HOA swept in, claiming they were elected to maintain property values. Nobody remembered voting. Nobody saw a ballot. Yet here they were, strutting around in matching Navy uniforms with HOA stitched in gold, handing out fines for untrimmed hedges, unauthorized birdhouses, and now, apparently, colorful mailboxes. Grandma Esther, with her sharp tongue and sharper wit, wasn't having it. Bunch of wannabe cops with too much time and too little sense, she'd mutter, stirring her famous snickerdoodle batter. The trouble started on a crisp October morning. I was tinkering with my old Chevy in Grandma's driveway when I heard her yell from the porch. "Marcus, get out here. These jokers are at it again." I jogged over, wiping grease from my hands, and saw two HOA goons, Karen and Dave, as their name tags proudly declared standing on her lawn, waving a citation like it was a court summons. Karen, with her peroxide blonde bob and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, was lecturing Grandma about non-compliant exterior modifications. Dave, a beefy guy who looked like he'd been a high school linebacker before settling into a life of petty power trips, was snapping photos of the mailbox like it was evidence in a murder trial. "Esther, this is your third violation," Karen said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You're looking at a $500 fine unless that mailbox is repainted by tomorrow." Grandma crossed her arms, her floral dress fluttering in the breeze. "I've lived here 50 years, Missy. Paid off this house before you were born. You think you can waltz in and tell me what color my mailbox should be over my dead body?" I stepped forward, trying to keep things calm. "Look, it's just a mailbox. Why don't we all take a breath and stay out of this?" "Son," Dave cut me off, puffing out his chest. "This is HOA business. Unless you're on the deed, you don't get a say." That's when I noticed the neighbors peeking out from behind curtains, some stepping onto their porches. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. Grandma wasn't backing down, and neither were these HOA clowns. I could have de-escalated, maybe offered to repaint the damn thing myself, but then Karen made a mistake. She stepped closer to Grandma, jabbing a finger in her face. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Esther, don't make us escalate this." "Escalate?" Grandma laughed, a sharp, dangerous sound. "Sweetheart, you don't know what escalation looks like." That's when the real trouble kicked off. The HOA's escalation came the next day, and it wasn't just Karen and Dave this time. They brought reinforcements, 3 more uniformed busybodies, each with a badge and a superiority complex. They showed up at Grandma's door with a tow truck, claiming her old Buick in the driveway was in violation because it hadn't moved in 48 hours. Never mind that she'd driven it to church the day before. Never mind that the street was public property. The citation they slapped on her windshield demanded $1,000 or the car would be impounded by noon. I was livid, but Grandma, she was apocalyptic. "They think they can take my car, my house, my freedom." She fumed, pacing her kitchen. "Marcus, I didn't survive 2 wars and a depression to let these pencil pushers walk all over me." I tried to reason with her. "Let's call a lawyer. Grams. There's gotta be a way to fight this legally. But Grandma wasn't hearing it. She grabbed her phone, dialed my older brother, Jamal, and barked, "Get your butt over here. We've got a war to win." Jamal, a 32-year-old firefighter with a temper as hot as the blazes he fought, was at the house in 20 minutes, still in his station t-shirt, looking like he was ready to bench press a minivan. The HOA crew didn't know what hit them. By 11 a.m., they were back, this time with a guy named Roger, who called himself the HOA compliance director. He was tall, wiry, and with a mustache that screamed, "I peaked in 1985. Roger handed Grandma a new citation, this one threatening to lien her house if she didn't comply with every rule in their 50-page community standards manual, a manual nobody had ever seen before they showed up. The neighbors were out in full force now, some whispering, others shouting support. Mr. Thompson, a retired vet from across the street, yelled, "Y'all are worse than the IRS." That's when the twist came. Out of nowhere, a beat-up Prius screeched to a stop, and out stepped Mrs. Guyen, the quiet widow who lived at the end of the block. Nobody knew much about her. She kept to herself, tending her roses and avoiding drama. But today, she was a wildfire. "I've had enough," she shouted, holding up a stack of papers. "These HOA people, they're not even legal." I dug into the county records. "There's no registered HOA for Willow Creek. They're scammers." The crowd gasped. Jamal's eyes narrowed. Grandma's jaw dropped, then curled into a grin. "You mean to tell me," she said, "these clowns are just playing dress up?" Mrs. Nguyen nodded, waving her papers. "No election, no charter, no nothing. They've been extorting us for months," the street erupted. Neighbors who'd been cowed into paying fines for unapproved flower beds or improper trash can placement started shouting. Karen and Dave exchanged nervous glances. Roger, the so-called director, started backpedaling toward the tow truck. But they'd underestimated Willow Creek, and they'd really underestimated Jamal. The climax hit like a freight train. It was just before noon, and the HOA crew made their final mistake. They tried to hook Grandma's Buick to the tow truck. Roger, flanked by Karen, Dave, and their two lackeys, started barking orders like he was some kind of sheriff. "This vehicle is in violation of Code 47B, he droned, as the tow driver, a nervous kid who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, started detaching the hook. Grandma stormed out, her walker clattering against the porch steps. "You touch my car, and I'll show you what 78 years of grit looks like," she shouted. I grabbed her arm, trying to hold her back, but Jamal was already moving. He planted himself between the tow truck and the Buick, his 6.2 frame towering over Roger. "Step away, son," Roger said, his voice shaky but still smug. "This is official business." "Official," Jamal roared. "You're a fraud. Man, Mrs. Nguyen's got the receipts. You ain't no HOA. You're just a bunch of con artists." The crowd was growing, phones out, recording every word. Karen tried to spin it, yelling, "This is private property enforcement. You're obstructing justice." But the neighbors weren't buying it. Someone threw a tomato, splattering Dave's pristine uniform. Another neighbor, a teenage girl named Riley, started live streaming, her voice cracking with excitement. "Y'all, these fake HOA cops are trying to steal Mrs. Esther's car." That's when it went from tense to explosive. Dave, red-faced and furious, shoved Jamal. Big mistake. Jamal didn't just shove back. He grabbed Dave by the collar, lifted him like a rag doll, and hurled him through Grandma's front window. Glass shattered. The crowd screamed, and Dave landed in a heap on her living room rug, dazed but unhurt. The other HOA goons froze, their bravado evaporating. Roger bolted for the tow truck, but the driver, spooked by the chaos, peeled out, leaving him in the dust. Grandma, unfazed, picked up her walker and started whacking Karen's clipboard out of her hands. "Get off my lawn! You glorified meter maid," she yelled. The neighbors cheered, some rushing to block the HOA crew's retreat. Riley's live stream was blowing up, thousands of viewers pouring in, comments flooding with emojis and "Get 'em, Grandma" chants. But the real shock came when the police arrived. Not the fake HOA kind, real cops, sirens blaring. Mrs. Nguyen had called them, armed with her evidence. The officers didn't waste time. They cuffed Roger, Karen, and the remaining goons, reading them their rights as the crowd roared. Dave, as in still picking glass out of his hair, was hauled out of Grandma's living room. Turns out, the HOA was a scam run by a group of out-of-town grifters, preying on small neighborhoods with forged documents and intimidation. They'd pocketed thousands in fines from Willow Creek alone. The aftermath was a reckoning. The story went viral, Riley's live stream hit 1 million views by nightfall, and news vans camped out on our street. Grandma became an overnight sensation, dubbed Neon Pink Nana by the internet. The county launched an investigation, and the fake HOA scam unraveled, exposing a network that had hit dozens of suburbs. Neighbors who'd paid fines got refunds, and Willow Creek held a block party to celebrate, complete with a new, even brighter pink mailbox that Grandma painted herself. Jamal, though, caught some heat. Throwing Dave through a window wasn't exactly legal, and he faced a misdemeanor charge. But the judge, a local who'd heard the whole story, let him off with community service, saying, "Son, I'd have done the same for my own grandma." The crowd outside the courthouse cheered as Jamal walked out, high-fiving Mr. Thompson. As for me, I learned something about family and fighting for what's right. Grandma didn't just stand up for her mailbox, she stood up for all of us, for the little things that make a home a home. The HOA scam changed Willow Creek forever. We weren't just neighbors anymore. We were a community, forged in the fire of that wild day. So, what do you think ever had to deal with a bully and a badge, fake or real? Drop your story below. Let's keep this fight alive.